Welcome to Clever Title Pending with your host, Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. Don't send him title recommendations because Brian knows exactly what he's doing. So just sit down and look pretty as Brian K. Morris scrolls through your comments and plays with his mouse. Join him on Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, for Evening Pandemonium and Moonlight Madness.
Hi there, how the heck are you? Hope you're having a great afternoon. We've got a very special episode of Clever Title Pending here at 4 p.m. on May 28, 2020 as part of the Con experience. If you can't go to the con, we're bringing it to you, all right? You got no choice. So anyway, thanks to Rob Anderson for helping me set this up, and I figure let's just not hesitate at all. Let us get to the meat of the matter. We're going to bring in, and in fact, he's already here because I hit the wrong button, Ted Davies, who is a very accomplished writer and artist, and now he has got some great publications under his belt and some really cool news that I think is going to really fire up some creatives here. So first of all, Ted Davies of TedDaviesArtistry.com. Notice how subtly I snuck that in there. Ted, thank you for being here. How the heck are you?
Very good, Brian. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank Con for letting us do this. And yeah, I appreciate it. Appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you for being here. Well, first of all, let's get the audience to love you. Tell us about Ted Davies. Where you're from, general background.
Mm-hmm. I grew up in Northwest Detroit, kid of the auto industry. My dad was a designer at Ford, and grew up in the all-American Detroit Motown.
Oops, I hit the wrong button there. I'm sorry, Ted. I apologize.
And it was no problem. And went to school in Detroit. Went to college in Detroit, and I spent a better part of my days even. After we moved to the suburbs when I was a teenager, moved back to Detroit with my wife. So, and we had a loft on down on the Detroit River for quite a while. I did probably, I think it was 28 years before we moved up north in the architectural field. So I did a lot of architectural work, everything from drawing homes to painting homes, all through the gamut as things were needed. And when I went to school, it was for architectural work, architectural design work, and licensing, or as far as a licensed builder and all that good stuff. So did that. I really, my passion was writing. I should have been a writer. I was a good designer. I was competent. A big fan of Frank Lloyd Wright, but I think my first calling as an artist was to tell stories. And I think I'm in the right place now. So Christine and I got the kids off to college, and we moved up to up north Michigan on a Great Lake, and living the dream, trying to inspire other people and make some things happening, for
Beautiful.
Everybody and for myself. So
that's awesome. Now, you mentioned that you originally kind of looked at yourself as a writer, and then eventually became called a writer artist at this point.
Right.
Why did you choose to be good at both rather than concentrate in one discipline or the other?
I think that that's a good question. I think that ego is a hard thing for a lot of people, especially me. I jokingly said, how do you spell ego? T-E-D. That was how I used to spell it. And that was, my wife would agree with that. And I'm sure many people that know me. And I think it's a form of control. I think but it's also, you want something done right, you do it yourself. And I'm crazy. I don't think if I told somebody about the stories, they'd actually get exactly what I was trying to say. And so I had to put that down, whether it be on watercolor paper with colors and drawing, or whether it was in prose within words. So it's all art form to me, no matter if it's a written word or whether it's done with a brush. It's all art.
That's
if that
cool.
makes any sense. But
No, it does. It makes a lot of sense. Now, you also mentioned that you have an engineering background. Now, are you still in engineering, or is
Architectural work. Yeah, I did.
architectural work?
I ended up. I was a student by, I think, because of my dad being a Welshman. He was from Wales. Frank Lloyd Wright was a staple diet in our house. Frank Lloyd Wright being the greatest American architect that ever lived. It was ingrained in me. So all the great artists were in our home as well. Greco, Picasso, Jackson Pollock. I mean, it went on and on and on. But Frank Lloyd Wright was a tier above the rest. Organic architecture was something I learned before I think I even went to art school. It was something my dad was adamant about. So in that architecture, I had a really hard time choosing what I wanted to do for college. Luckily they had a vocational training school when I was in high school, and they had architectural design program, and I won a few awards with college things that were going on at Lawrence Tech in Detroit, and that's what kind of propelled me into that field. My mother said to me, we had a talk, she said, when I was younger, she said, you can either draw your art or you can have people live in your art. What do you want? So, and that was an opportunity I had that, and, you know, I did that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hey, I did that house. Hey, I worked in that house. Now it's a little bit, hey, look at this comic book I've done. This is the book I have people reading now. So it's a different dynamic. Still
cool.
Creative, but just a different dynamic.
Well, very cool. Well, how do you think your engineering, or your architectural background? You can tell I'm a novice. I can't tell the difference between either one. But how do you think your architectural training influenced your storytelling ability?
I think that's another good question. I think that I talk about foundations a lot. I talk about bones, of the house when you're remodeling. It's the same thing goes. If the story has a good foundation, has good bones, has a if you want to call it a consciousness to it, just like a home, a spirit to the house. I use those all the time when I'm describing stories and describing books. It's the same imagery, really. The only difference is they're both structural. One's for load bearing, if you want to call it that, to live in structurally, physically, and one's to live in mentally. So I think it goes hand in hand. But I use without a doubt, I always use my drafting background, because we were drafting before lettering, everything else before before we were on the computers. We didn't have CAD. We were just getting CAD. When I was in college starting out. So I had that background. That's a huge thing, especially when I do watercolor work and, just laying things out. So.
Very cool. Now, how did you get into comic books? At what age did you first discover them? And, how did those also influence your storytelling ability? Also, feel free to drop names as to who had the biggest influences on you.
When I was a kid in Detroit, we had, and this is going to sound kind of weird because I don't want it to be it's not a racial thing. But I was kind of a minority in my area, and it was a good thing to learn because I really have a lot of respect for that. It's a disgrace. It really is. I have a real empathy for that feeling, not race, but that feeling of not being quite accepted, if that makes any sense. So having said that, growing up a young white boy in Detroit, I had a lot of black friends, and it was great. And I had a lot of white friends. I had a lot of Spanish friends. It was a great melting pot, And in that, everybody from the kids of police officers to kids from the big three, Ford, Chevy, Detroit, Dodge, they were all involved with my upbringing. So I had all kinds of different influences, but comic books was a staple diet. So we would dog ears, stick them in our pockets. We didn't have any, they were rags, but we loved them. And, I'll tell you my nerdy side here. I was about 7 years old. Star Wars just came out, and it was the first action figures I ever owned was C-3PO and R2-D2. The first comic book I ever owned was the Star Wars #1, which I still have, torn to hell. But it's that was my introduction. Beetle Bailey, Garfield, all those things were in the newspaper on Sunday morning, but it was the Star Wars comic book that got me hooked. And my mom had this sewing box. She had the sewing container that she would have all spools, and I think my sister confiscated it, but it fit comic books perfectly. So I took it. It had latches on it, and it was perfect. It was about this tall. Man, I stuffed that thing full, and that's the way I kept them. This is before boards and bags and all that, So I was 7 or 8, and I would lug that thing around with me like it was a, like it was some type of heart transplant box. It was like it would not leave me, And I was like this, 7 or 8 year old kid with this this sewing box in Detroit. It was I'm lucky I survived. But in any case, it was So that's my first memory of comics, and that was something within the realm of Detroit. We had really good neighborhoods, street to street. You had a really nice neighborhood, and then not such a nice neighborhood. So I was left to my drawing, and left to my comic books, and left to my watching Spider-Man cartoons in the afternoon. I was very not sheltered. I don't know if that's the right word, but just structured. Maybe structured is a good word. And I think that's pretty much why I gravitated to it, and that's how I started in the comic book. Anonymous. Comic book Anonymous club.
Right. Well, who are your earliest influences on your writing and your art?
That's a good one. You got really good questions.
I'm sorry.
No, very good. Well, I'll tell you what. I really liked early on Frank Miller. I liked Mike Mignola before Hellboy. And that's weird because Mike wasn't really, nobody really, they liked him, but they didn't really like him. Yeah. Obviously Kirby, Ditka. I really like heavy metal. One of the things that we would have these church bazaars, in the basement of Kelsler Hall in Detroit, and they didn't know what they were selling. They had the nuns and the priests didn't know what heavy metal was. They had no idea. But I know I was an 8-year-old kid. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm going, this is awesome. So, so any of the, I can't think of the name of the artist, Conan the Barbarian, anything like that was
Barry
very,
Smith?
Yes, thank you.
Barry
Stephen Rood was a big one. I got every Stephen Rood book from Nexus, from the beginning all the way to the end, and in the magazine form. And I've got all that. Not from a standpoint of that I want to emulate that artwork, but the respect for that type of artwork, the labor of love, the perfection in it. I was a big fan of, and you'll help me with this, in Superman. There was a ton of Superman that I really, really enjoyed back in the late 70s. And I don't know the artist, but for all the construction and the anatomy and that really got me as far as understanding, that whole concept of anatomy before I even went to school, I went to art school, fine art school, and that. But yeah, I get it. I there's too many, but I know Frank Miller was a big one. That was one of the, and then I got into, then you get away from things, and in high school I got kind of away from it, and then in the college I got kind of back into it, and then there was more. There was Obar, and there's all these other people that I. Some of them were just, I really like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and that whole raw, grungy, dirty, not material wise, but just the grungy looking art. I love that. And you'll see that a lot in my artwork. You'll see that mimicking, if you want to call it that. But So
very cool. Very cool. Carl Witzman, I've got to read this. This is a great statement. He said, that is cool. I bet more people can enjoy the art that you are doing now instead of just a few who might live in a structure. How do you feel about that?
That's very kind, Carl. Thank you. Very kind.
I'd say. And folks, if you have anyone who's watching us live on Conn Experience here, or on YouTube, or Rising Tide Publications, or anywhere you're seeing this, please feel free to ask questions because we're going to interrogate Ted to the best of our ability, but we are going to require your help. So please join in. And thank you to everyone who is tuning in. There's a whole lot of people, and already a whole lot more people than I can read comfortably right now. Now, getting back to your early work, Ted, I found it interesting that you're talking about Detroit. And you may not be, I'm going to assume you're aware of this, but feel free to look surprised. There is a contingent of creators who came from the Detroit area in the early 70s, like Rich Buckler and the great Jim Starlin, who created Thanos, Al Milgrom, even the letterer Tom Orzechowski. And it's like when you were, finding your creative roots, were you aware that Detroit already had was kind of like the northern end of Liverpool for comic creation?
Well, I did have some idea, but I was more concerned about. I was learning a lot about car design when I was growing up because my dad being that, and everything revolved around. This is so cool. When I was a kid, they would bring home cars that were 5 years in development. They weren't even out yet. And they would be wrapped up in leather and they would be hidden. And they'd have a little hole in the front so you could drive them home. Pull them in the garage, all the kids would come over and they'd unveil this car. That was my thing. So comic books was the same respect in that once I started finding out who was, not who lived in the area, but who was there. I grew up down the street from Tommy Hearns. There was all these people that I knew growing up that were like major people. And it's like such a, Aretha Franklin didn't live too far from us. It was nuts, And when you think about that in perspective, and then like I was talking about the Crow, O'Barr.
James O'Barr, yeah.
James. Okay. So James is from Detroit. I don't know exactly where he grew up, but I know that it wasn't too far from where I grew up.
Wow.
So when you look at, I was aware, but I wasn't surprised. Detroit is such a Detroit is an interesting place. I can go on and on. I have a story that I'm going to be fine tuning probably within 5 years, and it deals with all about how they found Detroit and why it was settled in theory, and it's all about my historical demented ideas of why it was. But it's a port city. It's on the water, and it's always going to be a money machine in some way, shape, or form. And that was something about Detroit. People that came up, a ton of musicians came out of Detroit. Motown was founded there. Oh, yeah. And when you look at it from a standpoint, I can go on and on. I can, whether you're going with Bob Seger, or I go on and on. There's all this energy that's from that one point, and everybody comes into Detroit. We were there. My family was there from 1705, so they were there when they settled with Cadillac. And one of the things about my family is my aunts were nuns, so they had the Vatican at their because they wanted everything documented, and we knew exactly the Trottier family, where they came from, how they got there, what they did with Cadillac. And that's true with a lot of families in Detroit. You can track back. So I am not surprised in the least that there's creative energy, the creative people that came out of that. There still are. There's still people that are coming out of there. I consider myself egomaniac as that sounds, as one of them. So, and I think that, I had no idea to your understanding of who was there, but that's, I'm learning all the time. I'm always learning. So
that's cool. Well, we're going to ask, because she's got a book premiere tonight, we're going to jump way ahead in my questioning list.
Sure. Hey, Cindy.
Yeah, Cindy Koepp, CKOEPP.com. Sign up for her newsletter. But she's got a question before she goes. What is your do you have your next project outlined? What is your next project?
Well, the newest release is Retrieve.
Which we'll be talking about soon.
Right. The next big project is going to be a retrieve story, and I'll touch a little bit later on that. But for Cindy especially, Archimedes is going to be the next launch, and that is a continuation of the retrieve book, and you'll understand it once you purchase retrieve, and once you find out a little bit more about retrieve. Archimedes is a major artificial intelligence that is everybody's going to learn a little bit something from, and that's actually going to be. We're doing. I'll announce it now. Chuck Pino is going to be doing the full enhancement, not just proofing, but the full gamut on Archimedes. We're bringing him on as a full editor on the project. Archimedes is going to be launched with Chuck. Nothing's going to not pass over Chuck's desk on Archimedes, so it'll be definitely worth your time to investigate it. It is going to be an awesome thing. It's going to be out in January. We're shooting for January. It might be a little bit after that, depending on if we go with crowdfunding or not. But I think, Archimedes is going to be the next one, and you'll learn a lot more about that soon.
All right, excellent. And I promise that Rising Tide will be covering all new developments in this.
Awesome.
Awesome. Also, I think, because I'm a fan of your stuff, so I'm glad to do it.
Thank
Carl
you.
Whitman
Thank
says, you're welcome. I don't know anything about comics, but is there a name for your style, Ted?
I think as far as my drawing style or what, Carl? Drawing style, I would consider it to be a controlled chaos. Is probably the best way to put it. My wife and I, I've got a very vintage retro vibe. I like car culture. I like when cars have rust on them. I like when motorcycles have rust on them. Very, you don't have to be a millionaire to have a vehicle to be proud of. And I think that with that in my comic books, it should be the same way. The reason I brought out my stories in comic book format, which they're not all going to be in comic book format, but the reason why I brought Retrieve out especially is I wanted to show people that you could take an idea, put it down into an implemented format that people could read in 20 minutes, the first caption of it, and digest it. I wanted it so that people that had a hard time reading could get in there and say, "Oh man, I could enjoy this. I am not scared to, I'm not scared to not be able to read that." If that makes any sense at all. I wanted it so that people, all my artwork, I wanted to challenge people to look at it and say, "Oh, that's how he did that. That's cool." Or maybe he could have done that a little bit better. I want people to be interactive with me, but also with the work. I want them to. Maybe that's let me say it this way. My work's interactive. I want people to have an effect, whether it's disgust or whether it's appreciation. But as far as the artwork itself, a grainy, dirty. I don't want you to feel anxiety when you see my work. I want you to look at it as a puzzle. I want you to see every grain on that watercolor stipple or splash that I did inspire you to maybe say, "Man, that looks like," I remember a painting from El Greco back when I was a kid or something, or we went to the Detroit Institute of Arts or went to Chicago Institute of Arts. We saw a painting that reminds me of that. He must have gotten that from Bruegel or something. That's so cool. I want you guys to think, and maybe that's, I have a saying on my website. It's confusing, but it'll make you think.
That's true. All right. And he follows up by saying drawing style is good, as opposed to fire being bad. And also, if you are interested in checking out Ted's work further, and we will be telling you how you can find where he is everywhere. But definitely check out TedDaviesArtistry.com, and you can order his books. You can see what he's got going. You can check out his broadcasts on YouTube. It's a pretty high functioning website there, so please check it out. I think you'll be very happy with it. I know I am.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, no, thank you. Next, let's get into the details about your publications. What was your very first publication?
First publication was Retrieve. It came out in August of 2019. We launched it at the Michigan Comic Show down in Detroit. I wanted to have the whole Detroit experience, even though Motor City was great. The book wasn't ready, and it was the suburbs. It's not quite Detroit. I wanted it to be in Detroit. So
Right.
that was my arrogance again. But it was good. It was well received. After the initial, I wasn't impressed with the show very much. I don't think many people were. And I think, in fact, I think the show is disbanded now. I don't even think that they're off. The show's even around anymore. So that was good that we were the last, the last of the great Michigan Comic-Con. So
you broke the show.
I guess
you killed it.
Before COVID, there was Retrieve. Yeah. But yeah, Retrieve was very well received, and it did very, very well. So that was my first technical publication, and it took off well. There was a few bumps in the road that I'm learning, and that was the whole thing. Evolving is the biggest part of this. If you're an independent artist, independent publisher, you've got to be able to pivot. You have to be able to look at it from a big. I understand people deal with a lot of mental health, and I get that, and I understand I deal with anxiety. I am living proof that you can get through it, and you don't have to, you can have those days where pull the cover over your head, and you can have those days. There's nothing wrong with that. But understand that there is a new sunrise. There is a new day, and you're going to be able to do it. And there is going to be somebody that you might inspire. Think about that for a minute. And that was what Retrieve taught me. I was shocked at the demographic of people that came back and taught me so much, not just from an editing standpoint, but when they said to me, man, that really is thought provoking. I've thought about reincarnation. I thought about that, but I've never thought about it in that respect. Man, and that's exactly what I wanted. So, but that was the first book. So the second book was. I delivered it. At the time, I was being published by another publisher. So I had another book delivered in November. And at the end of the year, we just decided that it wasn't, artistically, I wanted to take the book in another direction. So I said, that's one thing about hybrid contracts, which is fantastic. Whoever you have as a publisher, it limits bad will, and it limits anything that's that you guys aren't feeling right about. It takes that out of the equation. And you both can leave feeling good about it. And that's a big, you have to build good karma. I can't say that enough, but yeah, so.
Okay. Now tell us about Grimm 101.
Sure. Grimm 101 is going to be released. We're shooting for end of June. I wanted to bring in something that is more romantic a little bit. I've been working with Grimm 101 for probably about a year and a half. And I'm inspired by a couple of different things. If you've ever been, we live next to a cemetery, an old cemetery, and a lot of people don't like that. I think it's the best of both worlds. It keeps, I've got the beautiful Lake Huron here, and we see the waves crashing, and you've got all that beautiful energy and everything in life, and then you just slightly turn to the right, and you're reminded that, you know what, it's fleeting. It's fleeting. So get your can I cuss on this one? Get your shit together. Get your shit together in your life and start and structure your, because someday we're all going to be dirt. So you've got it. What can you do to inspire somebody today? And that's what Grimm's about. So Grimm is about a guy named Jim, and Jim wakes up inside of a cemetery, floating about 18 feet above the ground. And there's nobody, obviously it's a cemetery, he doesn't know what happened. He doesn't know how he got there. And he finds a book that's right below him on the ground. He gets down further, he's floating. He has to get down to the tree, and he grabs this book. And in the book in his hands has Grimm 101. And it's a manual of how to be a Grimm in a cemetery. If anybody knows what a Grimm is, it's basically a being that provokes angst and dread. And that there's ancient stories about, if you've ever gone to a cemetery and you've felt that depleting, exhausting feeling of grief, some spirit projects that onto you, and that's what I wanted. I wanted Jim. I wanted people to see Jim's side without him being the Grim Reaper. I want people to see his side of how people don't see him, and he's all by himself. and he's really not very good at his job, and he doesn't even know why he's there. He really wants to be a stand-up comic. So, in the storyline, he ends up meeting a young lady who is a Pinterest kitchen witch that lives next door in this small cottage. Mm-hmm. And she finds herself looking through. Do you know what a hagstone is? Does anybody here know what a hagstone is?
Yeah. Okay. Quiz time, people. There we go.
So there's a hagstone. So hagstones have little tiny holes in them. And it's said that if you look through that hole, you can see spirits. You can see fairies. You can see all kinds of stuff. Well, this particular kitchen witch, she ends up looking through a hole, and guess what she sees? Jim.
What's that?
She sees Jim. Now she thinks, being who she is, that she brought him into fruition. So he must be there for her bidding. Well, that's not what happens. So the story ensues, and I'll leave it at that. But Jim and her are it's a very, very down-to-earth, pardon the pun, story, and it talks about how you can you don't he might not know where he comes from, but he knows who he is because of her. And it's a very interesting. It's going to be more of a prose book. It's only going to be, I'm going to have a few books out in that series. They're probably going to be 40 pages, and they're going to have independent watercolor work in them, like a traditional old book, but it'll be in trade paperback. So that's Grim 101. Yep.
Very nice. Well, first, Nick Tocker says that hagstones are potent mojo. And leading up from that, of course, I'm going to ask before anyone else does, what did you see when you held that up to your eye just now?
The same thing I always see with you, Brian. Same thing I always see.
Oh, okay.
One fez to promote them all. So
that's right.
Brian,
that's right. I saw into your soul, Brian, and it's dark, so very dark. Yeah, I get it. So now this will lead into another publication you were gracious enough to give to me. Albino Zulu. Tell us what's this about, and I've got some questions about the format and stuff. And see, it's okay to envy me now, folks. I have a Ted Davies original here, so
yeah, a couple of them, I think.
Yeah, I know a couple of them. Yeah, I can't reach the other one. Didn't plan that well, but
Albino came out. So I think that diversification is the key. I'm not trying to flood the market with my work. I want to have. I want to be able to reach all kinds of readers. Whether they're not everybody wants to learn about reincarnation or have that mind, that mind jump. Some people just want to have, or some kids just want to have fun. They want to be introduced to comics. And that was what Albino Zulu was about. Albino Zulu originally came out as an idea from a podcast because unruly cosplayers, young cosplayers, were running around a event. They weren't being parented, and they were just screaming and just being ridiculous. And I said, would it be funny if we came up with a patrol team, maybe one of the special agent named Albino Zulu that would, police them. And I just put that in the back of my mind. I'm like, nah, I said, that's, there's laws, there's kids. It could be a problem. Blow darts with Benadryl. It could be a problem. Yeah. So
you didn't hear that, people. You didn't hear that. Okay.
Right. So I took that. We just erased that idea. And I said, well, I'm going to keep the name because I really like the yin and the yang. Albino Zulu. Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So it's attractive. And it's about a person that is found by a Zulu chief in South Africa. A baby, and he's an orphan, obviously, but the chief brings him in and raises him as his own. And it's about the superpowers that this character has, and his origins are being shown to him as the story goes on, and the parental guidance of the Zulu leader, and how Albino loves music, but he's got all these special gifts that he can help the world, but he wants to do it while he can rock. So there's everything about it it's kind of, and I told you this before, it's 007 meets Black Panther meets Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I think that's probably the best way to show it. I wanted it to be a format that I sell it in a digital format as well as a print format. And I did it that way so that people could buy it and the kids could print it off at home. They could color it. And then it's an interactive thing with us, me and Christine, because we can have them parents send the pictures to us, and we'll put them on the refrigerator, Albino Zulu refrigerator on the website. And those are coming in now, so it's great. It's been really interactive, been very, very good. And albino, it's a step away. It's a kind of an interim, just to get my people say, what do you do about writer's block? I don't have it, because what I've done is I've taken one story and I've just pushed it aside for a minute, and then I go into something else. Albino gives me, it's like starting up a car and driving. I can think a little bit, because I'm working on albino. It's completely different from retrieve, different from Grim 101. It doesn't anything to do with any of them. And that's, I think, and then when I get uninspired, or if I feel like I've got that down, then I can go back to what I was doing. It really works well for me. That's been a really, but that's, and I have an analogy too, that, you see these, all these major stars in Marvel, and they do all these great things in Star Wars and all these other shows. But during the downtime, they take smaller projects on. They do a smaller no-name producer or whatever. That's what Albino Zulu is. It's a recovery, if you want to call it that. But
a palate cleanser.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a rinser, and that's I think. But it's important for the kids, because I want them to show them, hey, you know what? There's a viable idea here, and it came out of the ether. Okay, and I wanted it black and white, so you guys can show me what your interpretation is. Throw some color on there. See what you think.
Cool.
And I also wanted to bring in an albino 2. You've got albino 1. Albino 2 is on the work now. I've got the second cover here. I'm working on now.
Oh, nice.
And Agent Pang. I don't know if you can see him. Agent Pang. Okay, Agent Pang is something too. I wanted to bring awareness to the pangolin reduction that's going on right now in the world. And pangolins, not penguins, but pangolins are an awesome creature. And that was one thing that with this book, I hope I can bring some awareness about how cool they really are. And that's, cool. It's something to be fun. And that's the main thing. And for a couple bucks, to sell for a couple dollars or $3 or whatever, it's an entry level for kids to come in. They can purchase it with their allowance money, or, there's a way to do it. And I have an area in the back, like you said, that I print every single one of them. I do a custom drawing of Zulu. So it's an interactive piece that I hope it's a gift that keeps on giving to people. So.
Well, very cool. Very cool. Chuck Pinot, who has been mentioned favorably on this show, says Albino Zulu was a fun story and a good setup. I think it's very true. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you very much, Chuck.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. That was great. Well, how many now, as a palate cleanser, does this mean, now, granted, Albino Zulu has a younger readership, or an intended younger readership than Retrieve. So what is the plan? We do, maybe you answered it already, but do Retrieve until you get like a little backed up in your head with it, and then do an Albino Zulu, or are you going to alternate between the two? Or do you have a plan for publication?
Every couple months, I'm going to put Albino Zulu out. And right now we're gearing up for the shows that will happen in the next year. I'm not really shooting for any shows right now. Next year is good with me. I want everybody safe, including myself. Retrieve is a 5-book series. So the arc, the first storyline. So it will be done. I've got one that'll be coming out in July, number 3. And then we're going to complete the series by December. So that when we're done 4 and 5, Archimedes will be ready to launch in January, February. So that's going to be the first. There's only 5 of the original of Retrieve, if you want to call it that, the introduction to the Retrieve program. But Albino's small enough to where it's only 12 pages, and it's in a smaller format, and it's more of just a stress relief, and just so every couple months I'll throw one out, and then we'll put it up there and see how it does. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Rick Bradley's chimes in saying, I love what you're doing with Albino Zulu. That's an awesome idea.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that, Rick.
I agree completely with that. Now, you say you've got like a 5-issue plan, and we're going to switch now to Retrieve, because I'm really, like everyone else that reads it, I'm really intrigued with the basic concept of it. Do you have plans, down the road, and this could go for Albino Zulu too, to put them together in a larger volume, the way that the mainstream comic companies put together the books for the trade paperback. Do you have plans of a similar nature? Okay.
What I wanted to do was, and I'm glad you asked that question. What I wanted to do, everything that I do, you'll hear me say Christine or Chris, or that's my wife, and we're both creative mindsets. So I bounce, I've got to. She says, "No, that's not going to work." Yeah, that's going to, she's my filter. And with that, when I was looking at Retrieve and how it was first released, I didn't feel that I wasn't happy as far as with myself, as far as the book, my production of the book, because being an independent, you learn things. And so what I wanted to do, and that's why Chuck's on this call and he gave me the go ahead to announce it. I am revamping the series with one of two things I'm doing. So I am of the mindset that you should put out Easter eggs throughout all of my work, and I don't think that people got a lot of it. I am going to announce it here for the first time.
So there's a couple. This is the big one.
Okay. Well, no, this is I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
This is a smaller part. So,
okay.
So Chuck is going to be doing all my proofing on the resurgence of what I'm going to call Retrieve's trade book. Book 1 through 5 on the comic books are going to be a certain way. Any corrections from that, whether the grammar or the blocks don't look right, we're going to be straightening that out for the trade. But we're going to do it so that the original comic book formats are always going to be the originals, so that the collector or the people that were at the beginning that supported me, those are just as valuable, because if not more, because they're limited edition now. But I put these little Easter eggs of maybe you have to find them. I'm going to just say they're right in plain sight.
Okay.
Chuck knows it because Chuck called me up. He's like, "Dude, what's going on with this?" And I'm like, "Well, there's a reason why I did that. There's not. Yeah. It was actually thought of. It wasn't done as a that we missed it. It was actually, there's a couple, but I only did that on the first 2 books. Now we're going to have things proofed a little bit more in depth, and I'm not going to be playing around. Chuck's going to take the Retrieve to a little bit cleaner, not cleaner as far as material, but as the substance. We're just going to look at it, and then when the 5th book is done, then I'm going to offer the trade book with all of the finesse to it. It'll be the lipstick on the pig, so to speak. But it'll be the copy that you can crack open, and it's cool, and it's going to have some extra artwork in it from the original of Archimedes sketches that I did from 5 years ago, and all these other ideas. But yes, we're going to definitely do that, and I want to offer that to the public. I think it's going to be well worth the wait once we're done.
Excellent. Paul Ruff says, "I will be checking your work out in a few days. It sounds awesome." He's right.
Good deal, Paul. Thank you, Paul.
All right. And Jolene Naylor says, "That's awesome that your wife is your creative wall to bounce things off on."
Absolutely.
Now, what is her? Does she have like a area of creativity of her own?
She does. Chris went to school before I met her. We both went through. Of course, there's never great divorces, but we both went through divorces.
Right.
And we met. Yeah, it was one of those serendipitous. It's such a weird thing. So she ended up getting her degree in graphic arts. She also she went to school for photography. My dad was remember Soupy Sales? I don't know if you remember Soupy Sales.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, my dad was his graphic designer, his photographer. So my dad and her ended up had this great relationship photography wise, because she did black and white development photography, and he was back in the age. He was from World War II. So that was just an awesome thing. Anyway, it's off the subject. But Christine, she's very much she's extremely artistic, creative. She went to school for a few different things, but that was that's something to her eye. I know that I know that she's the front line, period. I mean, there's no, but one thing about her is she knows her limitations. And that was one thing that we both, I mean, realistically, and I told Chuck this last week, we've been talking about doing this with Chuck for probably about 3 months, just between her and I. When I flipped the switch to bring him on to the Retrieve program and then bring him on, or project, and then bring him on for Archimedes. One, it was probably, I think it was probably the most thought out teamed effort for my production work, I think. I think that it's not the initial investment. It's not about that. It's the energy that I know that will blossom from the project. And that's something that Chris sees. She believes in me. This woman has I won't go into all of it, but she's had to deal with so much. Just being married to Ted, my family say, we didn't have a choice. You had a choice to marry him. We didn't have a choice. Mom and Dad didn't give us a choice. Or he just came along. So with that, my heart goes out to her. She deserves every bit of respect as far as that goes. But artistically, yes, I think I have to say she is her black and white development work. She went to Center for Creative Studies in Detroit. She's phenomenal. And she sells herself short all the time, like all great artists do. And I know I'm talking to you too, Fez boy. I'm talking to you too, because you do it all the time. And your bar is about to be raised, my friend, because you were definitely a very, very worthy personality, my friend.
Well, thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate that.
It's meant from the heart. It's meant from the heart.
I know, and that's and I love you too, man. And speaking of which, tune into Clever Title Pending last Tuesday, where we talked about the imposter syndrome. I'm the poster child, but no, that is very cool, Jolene. Thank you for that excellent question there, and please keep those questions coming. And speaking of your darling wife, off topic, although not really, this is a good segue. But does your wife have a photo website as well?
One thing about Christine is, like I said, she's very. I don't know if the word is shy. I don't think shy. I think she's very humble, and I think that's
it's a good quality.
She doesn't want to. We have both worked for huge companies. Both of us worked for the Home Depot Corporation and Lowe's. I worked on a new store development. She worked in the project acquisition thing, and we've seen companies go bankrupt by growing too fast and losing their passion. And she was a professional photographer for almost 10 years. And it was every weekend shooting weddings, shooting soccer games for kids. And it got to the point where she just didn't want that. And, she went back to school for herbal medicines, and she's doing that. Now we're launching a new company you'll be hearing about soon called Wicked Weeds. And it is all about medicinal herbs and how you can use them in your foods.
Very cool.
There's a lot of things, grub rub, and all these other things you can add to your no crap in it, no MSG, very low sodium. So segue, Wicked Weeds is coming, but I think that is going to be probably her mainstay, because she can blossom, pardon the pun, with that. But yeah, I think that, and we're getting there. It's evolution. We're getting there. You've got people. I know everybody. We all know people that don't promote themselves properly, whatever that means.
Right.
And the internet is nice because it's a leveler. It will allow you to be as big as you want to be or as small as you want to be. And but I think that there are certain standards. Like I was talking to a good friend of mine, one of my business advisors, actually. He's a dear friend of mine. He's a brother to me. We were talking earlier. There's certain standards of what you need to do in business now. Website, Square, PayPal. You have to have certain things. Some people just aren't ready for that, and some people need to have handlers, and not in a bad way, but just in a way that can direct them. There's people that I delegate to, and then I listen to, because I don't know it all, and I'm scared to do some things. You know what I mean? You guys get it, but that's probably why. I think that I think it's more about a humility. And she's amazing. So
So the answer is obviously no.
In a nutshell, no. Not yet, anyway. If they end up finding its way onto a link onto my page when she gets one. Well, that's the way it works. But
well, there you go, and we'll promote her too. How's that sound?
thank you.
And she does know what a fez is now, so that
Yeah,
she's
does.
made great
That's right.
strides.
That's
She's
right.
made great strides in life.
She's a huge Indiana Jones fan. Huge Indiana Jones fan. And when she first saw you, because I've been listening to you for a while, but when she first saw you, and then John Rhys Davies is a cousin of mine, so he's like a Welshman, and he's wearing a fet. She's like, hey, that's just like your cousin John. I'm like, yes. What's it called? And she's like, Shriner. I'm like, no, it's not a Shriner. No, it's a fez. It's a fez, honey. It's a fez. No, it's not. I'm like, Google it. So we get these big debates. So I won. So
of course.
That's
Yeah,
all that matters. That's all that matters. So
it's another example of Terran, cultural appropriation from the Gallifreyans. So if you want to go that way, and Carl Wisman says, I use Flickr, just not professionally. Well, Carl, they won't let you put up those kind of pictures anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks for the parental warning, Carl.
Yeah. Which most of the shows where Carl and I appeared need one. So so getting back to Retrieve, I said, I'm super crazy about the concept of it. What inspired Retrieve? Tell us about the history of that.
Well, there's a couple things. Let me tell you about the basis of Retrieve. Maybe I should go through that first.
That'll turn the whole crowd on. Trust me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. If anybody hasn't seen the book promo yet, I urge you to do that. Go to teddavies.com or teddaviesartistry.com and check out the promo. Retrieve is about two brothers that it's set in the near future, and I like that dynamic. I think that if it's achievable in our lifetimes or just about our lifetimes, I think that makes it just a little bit more interesting and even quite scary. But Retrieve is set up that two brothers, MIT graduates, come up with an algorithm. They're twin brothers. They're very good in math. And in the future, our computer systems are set up in a fluid-based technology. They're not in a silicone microchip technology. So the reaction times are extremely fast. The processing times are so fast. They're blinding, almost like a brain synopsis, if you want to call it that, a synapsis. And with that, these brothers, Max and Riley Stature, come up with an algorithm that they believe that the soul is pure energy. So it has a signature. It has an energy signature, in theory. Well, when they come up with the algorithm, they think that they can track a human soul after it dies from a standpoint of not where it goes to heaven or hell, but when it's going to return to be reborn. So if they think that energy can't be stopped and it can never die, it can just change form, that's the beginning of the algorithm. So with the series of computers that they build, they come up with the idea that they can get a being, if you want to call it that, an AI named Archimedes. Very apropos name if you check out any background on the name Archimedes. And he processes the algorithms that will track the human soul's return to Earth. If you want to call it the rebirth into a new lifetime. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it'll come back as the person who it was in the prior life, whether it's a man or woman or what have you. Now, the linchpin of the whole story is that these brothers, these Stature brothers, these doctors, are survivors or great-great-grandchildren of a survivor of the Holocaust. And they inherit videos of their great-great-grandfather talking about how they wish they could have gotten Hitler because of the atrocities that he caused, but he was never brought to justice. Obviously, everybody knows he was killed in the bunker and killed himself like the coward he was. Well, the Retrieve program can alter that. They can track the human soul of Hitler and when he's going to come back to the earth. Now, in this lifetime that he comes back, he might not be Hitler, and he might not remember anything, or it might be a she, who knows. But in the story, you'll find out. It ultimately goes after everything that was bad in a past life. So say, for instance, that say that you were Mother Teresa in this life, but in the past you were Dr. Mengele. Well, they would try you after you were regressed in this Retrieve program with the help of Archimedes and find out who you were. And then they try you for the crimes that you were never brought to justice for in your past life. Doesn't matter who you are now or who you were now. Because once you regressed, now there's no going back. And that's basically the storyline of Retrieve, and how the government is involved. And it's quite a scary story if you think about it. I mean, who would you go after? Who would you not do it as a criminal search? Would you do it as a search for? Would you bring back Gandhi, or would you look for Gandhi? In his form today, and then regress him back to who he was in the 20s and 30s. Who would? I mean, it goes on and on. Elvis, John Lennon. There's a list of people. Frank Lloyd Wright. Who would you want to have dinner with? But the trick is that once they're regressed, that's who they are again.
Interesting. I just see, like I told you. When you first let me see this, I just see so much potential for years. Now, you said earlier that you had like a 5-issue arc for your initial story. Looking into your crystal ball, how many stories do you see yourself doing in the Retrieve universe?
Right now, I think that there's going to be 3. I'm waiting because the larger news that we're going to be bringing up in a minute is going to actually it's going to kind of guide the path a little bit on what we're going to be doing on the books, because the books are going to be, timing is going to be extremely important with that. But I think that there's 3 because I think that it's interesting to see different perspectives. I think that you're going to see the good guy, bad guy perspective, and then you're going to see the bad guy, good guy perspective. I think that there's always truth in every form. I'm not saying that I justify anything that Hitler did or anything. I despise anything that's affiliated with racism or Nazism or anything like that. This is not about that at all. It's about seeing what happened to cause that, but also being brought to justice for things that you can't get away from.
Interesting.
So anyway, but as far as that goes, there are going to be 3 stories. I know that the Retrieve and then Archimedes is going to be the initial launch of Archimedes. Archimedes is going to be probably, we're not sure if it's going to be a 10-book deal yet. We're not sure because it can go a couple different ways. And I'll go further into that later in the year once we'll get you'll have the first. I'll make sure that we announce it only with you first. So it'll be the first, and we'll try to get Chuck on there too, because I think that'll be a huge bonus having him to see it. Man, this kid doesn't know what he's doing,
we'll sit here and talk smack about you, right? Yeah, you'll just be our punching bag.
Right.
Nick Tucker says, building up spouses past their hesitation for publishing is very rising tide, is it not? And he further. Yes, good comment there, Nick, whose wife is also an author. And Nick Tucker says that aborts the development of the incarnation of the soul, preventing any real growth if that is the system for a frail, shallow form of justice. Terrifying. Yeah. And that's the thing that got me when you told me about the basic concept was this has some terrifying permutations. Now, and I know you're going to explore them, but one thing that popped in my head was, can you see a time when this catches fire and turns you into a superstar that you truly are meant to be? Can you see, don't you get all imposter on me, but anyway, can you see a time when maybe you're farming out, allowing other people to play in your sandbox, so to speak?
Well, since you said that, I got contacted last week Wednesday, and not yesterday, but the prior week. I've been in discussions with a producer out in California for I've had Retrieve out before it was actually in comic book. I've been kind of testing the waters a bit with the concept because I believe that not necessarily the comic books or the books have to be what is produced in video. I think that there's a lot of things that could be altered and actually grown. And I'm happy to say that the first time announcing this now is that Retrieve is being scripted for option now in LA. I'm actually going to be in discussion a little bit further this week with the producer. It's going to be set up to go to, I don't know exactly how I know that there's a venture studio that's on legal first pitch. We have to give them the legal aspect of it to have them first look at the script once it's on for option. We have to give them the first grab, so to speak. But having said that, Retrieve, the sky's the limit right now. I'm excited because I don't know what. One of the best things about it is there's the evolution of an idea that we talked about being validated. And I know that a lot of people, a lot of writers look for a publisher to give them validation, or look for somebody that you're not worth anything unless you sell something, or to have a person that reads your book or reads a script is worth every no that you hear. But to have somebody actually believe in the idea and then take it to a major production outlet is completely, I can't even, there's no words. There's tears, there's excitement. And to be realistic, these options happen. You want a story to go to option. Whether it's made into a movie is irrelevant, to be honest with you, or an animated series or whatever. It's irrelevant. The fact that the idea is from concept to script to pitch is mind-blowing. And I can't even, there wasn't even words for me when I got off the phone or got off the Zoom call. I didn't even know what to say. But like I said, there's a lot that goes on in the scripting, and there's a lot of legalities and such. So it's a little bit of a road ahead, but boy, what a road. Hopefully it's paved with a couple specks of gold here and there, but I just hope that the story gets out and gets to the point where I trust the scriptwriter wholeheartedly. They've got some definite accolades that I was extremely humbled when they ordered the book to begin with. I didn't realize that they actually got it from one of my local comic book stores, ordered it, had it shipped, and then I got an email back about a week later. But it wasn't until last week that the go ahead happened. The switch got flipped, and ironically, Chuck Pino is in the format with all of it, so he's going to be just even making it shine just a little bit brighter. So, so that's the news. That's the major news. That's one of the major. That's probably the biggest deal about Retrieve right now. Mm-hmm. So I was very. It can happen. People, it can happen. There's ideas out there that people want to see, and right now, like you said, people want to be entertained. The time now is to build that architectural, that foundation, mm-hmm. to get that site ready to start building your home. And you guys mm-hmm. have to embrace this right now. It's a blessing in some respects. It's not for everybody. And I know there's a lot of people that are sick, and you guys be responsible and stay healthy. But yeah, there's some, think about who you're going to inspire in 20 years. Think about who you're going to inspire in 5 years. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, very so we're true. Excited. I'm over the moon. I can't give you the full details of everything yet, but it's it'll be on the journey, and I'm going to explain that to you more with YouTube. It'll be something to where this is the first time I've announced it on air to anybody. So you're the first, Brian. I want to make sure that everybody knows it's a go, and we're excited. So we're pumped, and I'm going to let you know how it goes. I'm going to say, hey, yeah. And listen, it's not all grins and giggles. There's going to be some rough conversations. There's going to be characters taken out, maybe. There's going to be rewrites. There's going to be things that, and that's the thing about optioning. They might have the rights for a few years, once it's mm-hmm. optioned, and then nothing might happen. Hellboy didn't. Hellboy went to the side and I'm not comparing me to Mike Mignola at all, but just the relevance of how don't worry about the BS. Look at what you've accomplished. Look at the journey. Look at those little steps that you're taking. And you know what? Anybody else can do it. It's connections. It's being good to people. It's networking properly. It's presenting yourself in a professional manner that will bring others with you when you become successful. If you lack any of that, then you shouldn't be behind a microphone. You shouldn't be behind a camera. Try to bring everybody that you can with you.
Exactly. Exactly. Very cool. Very cool. Carl Witzman reacts with sweet. All right. And Russell Allen says, hello, what's up, Ted? And hey, Brian. Hey, Russell. And Rick Radley says, that is amazing, Ted. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the one thing that got me when you told me about this going through. And now we begin the incredibly grisly interrogation now about the movie.
Sure.
To where you try to, and you are welcome and encouraged to say no when I ask a question. But one thing that got me about this was I used to work in comic shops back in the 80s and 90s. And I remember when we took a chance on this this comic book. They only printed like 3,000 copies of a black and white comic, and they did it because they couldn't afford color.
Right.
So they did 3,000 copies of this book, and it sold out immediately. And it was this thing called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And look what that has become.
I was
here.
I was there, man. Yep.
Oh, same here. And, look what, it made the creators a freaking empire, really. And it shows it could happen to anyone. How
many creators did that inspire? I'm one of them. I mean, it was on the kitchen table. They were creating that stuff. I mean, think about that. And now they didn't have the internet. Yeah. They didn't have any. They barely had Adobe Photo. They didn't have any of that. We had Apple IIes back then, I think, or a little bit better than that.
Or VIC-20s.
Yeah. Commodore 64s, baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I remember the Texas Instruments with the cassettes. We were downloading video games, So I cannot stress it enough. Do not let that voice in your head say, it's not working. It's not worth it. I'm not worthy. Nobody's going to listen to this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I tell people that, it can take forever for you, it can take years to become an overnight sensation. I mean, look at the Beatles. How long they were together playing in a dingy club, and then one day, about a year later, they're every girl in Great Britain screaming their name, and then they're on the Ed Sullivan Show, etc. So lightning can strike, and I think this is a great story where it shows that if you have a great idea and you follow through with it like you said, in a professional manner, and believe in your product, that it can happen. And Rick Bradley further goes on to say, you miss 100% of the opportunities you don't take. Very, very true, Rick. Thank you for that statement. Now, how did your product, you say that the producer, and I'm not going to ask, I only want to ask for one name a little further down the road, but because I know how these contracts work, there's a lot of NDAs going on, and we're not going to violate them here. But how did this producer find? You said he found, he got it from a comic shop, one of your local comic shops. Well, how did he learn about it?
Craig and I have been longtime friends for a long time. And
Craig who?
Craig Hall.
Thank you. Okay.
I can give you all of his information. Craig Hall is a producer in California. He's got a series coming out right now for PBS coming out in your neck of the woods in Indiana. Nice. He's doing a whole show on the backbones of Indiana and what he loves about being a Hoosier. Nice. He grew up in Indiana, and he is. But he's done a lot of work in California. He's a very established writer and producer out there. He's I can't think of any of the off the top of my head right now, but as far as that goes, he and I have been bouncing ideas off for at least a year and a half to 2 years. I've been talking to him. I've been writing Retrieve since '84. I've been really breaking it down and seeing, okay, and that's something too. It's part of a journey. So when Craig called me, or when we talked about it, he says, we really need to sit down. We got to do a Zoom meeting. We got to talk really about what this is about. and how, you know, you need to get that synopsis to me. The first synopsis I sent out about a year ago, and it was like, it wasn't the right time. You know, I wasn't ready. The books weren't out. Right. He wasn't ready. He had things going on with his, you know, because once you're producing, you've got 8 weeks or 12 weeks and it's bam. I mean, you're there, you're doing every day. I wouldn't want that. I really wouldn't want that lifestyle. That's got to be hard.
Right.
But as far as that, he's been always so encouraging and always following me. And, you know, he saw my post that, hey, I'm at this local comic shop. I've known Cashman's Comics in Bay City rocks. I'm just letting you know, John Cashman is awesome. Bay City, Michigan. You need to check him out. He and his dog Petey are just incredible. They were the first people to house my book, and right in the middle rack in front of everything, right dead center.
Nice.
Fantastic people. And the thing I like about Craig is he wants to support local comic shops. He paid $15 to get that thing sent to him in California. One comic, and you know how that goes. We all do it. Yeah. But that said to me, you know what? He gives a shit about at least the ink meant something to him. You know.
Yeah. That's great.
The potential on it is what he saw. He's like, if you could take this story, you could do animation, you could do stop animation, you could do live action. You could. It's a full gamut, and the theory or the idea that you could actually bring somebody back literally from the dead, if you want to call it that, and then prosecute them for the atrocities that they caused that were never brought back. He said that's it. Everybody has not everybody, but people. That's a movie. That's a story that's what he told me, and I'm like, well, okay, and I get it. And I mean, I studied Buddhism. I studied Taoism. I consider myself a Taoist. I'm not really a Catholic anymore. I think that, and when I studied all these things and intrinsically, all these stories that I kept hearing were about rebirth, we just move on. We just go on. We just continue. And I felt like, you know, I dress like I'm from the 50s. I feel like I've been, and it sounds corny, but I feel like I've been around before. And they say being an old soul or whatever. And, you know, maybe I'm nuts. I mean, maybe I am. But I know that Christina and I feel that way. We listen to Benny Goodman. We listen to, you know, rockabilly music and it's just something. And we're not completely cut off. I'm not saying that, you know, we're internet-based people. We're tech heads, you know. But, yeah, you got to look at it from all standpoints. And that's how I really got that retrieve. Man, what would you do if you know, if you found out that you were, you know, what would you do if you found out that you weren't a very nice person in past life?
Yeah, and you turned out to be a nice person in this life.
Right. And
because isn't that part of reincarnation to basically become a better person? If I understand understand reincarnation, of course.
Right.
Which
well, you
I
talk
don't.
about dharma, you talk about karma.
And
that was something that with retrieve, I think more so it was, you know, the two brothers in the story want to bring closure to their grandfather's wish. And if they can do it mathematically, because mathematics is the science that we all live with, it is the truth, right?
Right.
What now, having said that, not to say that it's wrong or right, not to say that if it's in the wrong hands, the technology, that algorithm, if the United Nations or God knows who gets a hold of that technology, we're all in the chopping block. Every single one of us, if our numbers come up, so to speak. If they calculate that we're the reincarnation of, you know, Jack the Ripper, whoever. I mean, there's some real underlying psychotic tones there. That could be really, you know, with the wrong. Could you imagine if that happened today?
Oh yeah.
Lord.
That'd be a mess. That'd be a total mess, even worse than it is right now. Carl Witzman says some people devolve in the next life, at least in Taoist and Buddhist belief. That's very true.
That's true. Very true.
And Rick Bradley says, I know many times when something bad happens, I usually ask what I did in a past life. Right. I think most of us do at one point.
Well, I say it about Christine. I don't know what I did in a past life, but I must have done it right. So whatever. I mean, it's, you know, for her, I feel sorry for her, but for me.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I tell people when I'm having a bad day, I must have been Hitler in a previous life. So
Well, maybe
this
we'll
is
find out when we run the retrieve program. We'll find out.
that's right. Yeah, I'll be in issue 4, folks. So look for the guy in the fez. Rick Bradley further asks, I don't think you mentioned if it would be live action or animated, but which would you prefer for your story? So are we going for live action? Are we going for animated? And which, if you had your dream project on this, what would be your druthers on that?
I think that live action. I think that there's going to be enough CG involved, but I think it's going to be. I think it would. The reason why is I think that we as human beings are going to see the humanity in the story if it's live action. If you see, I'm not going to give away the story, but when you see the loved ones that are changed because the person that they loved is now gone because they're not that person anymore. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if they have dementia in a way because they've been regressed back to their past life and they're that person now. Mm-hmm. It's devastating. And having that in an animation, or I don't think you'll get that. I don't think you'll get that connection because I think that's the sadness of the story. Mm-hmm. Of you have a death of a person with that person still there. It's like you're watching a video of them daily as they're being prosecuted, as they're being, whatever that entails, mm-hmm. Whether they're in prison for the rest of their lives, and you're still thinking that, oh, well, he's just, or she's just, it's a head trip. So yeah, live action.
It is. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, there's a lot to unpack from this story too, because another thing, I thought of was like, what if someone dies and they want that person brought back right away? Right. That's why I see like nothing as a writer. I see nothing but the potential in this. And, I think this has a lot of possibilities. Now, you said that the person writing the screenplay has a pretty hefty resume. Can you tell us who that is?
Actually is Craig. Craig.
Oh, Craig's in it too. Okay, cool. Very cool.
He's like, I want all of it. He said, I want to bring, not from a greed standpoint, but he said, I want to work with you, but I want to bring. There's a thing about, because there's a certain amount of loyalty, but there's also there's contracts that are already written, so right. We have to have it brought to. I mean, you can do a couple different things. You guys know about book agents and that type of thing, showing. Right. It's the same thing goes with publishing houses with studios. You mm-hmm. have writers that are, or you have producers that are already in there. They are actually locked in contract that they are the first person they have to be shown the first script that comes off of the idea. Mm-hmm. If they take it on privately, that's fine, but and that's a good thing. It's a great thing because you're already in the door. And that was something that I was prepared for, but I didn't know. Again, we're still at the beginning stages of the scripting. And it's still in synopsis status, Mm-hmm. So the manipulation, the plastic of it, the maneuvering of it is still at the basics. But yeah, I think that you have to have a certain. Everything's done by connections. I always taught my kids this. I said, don't do this as a matter of using people to your advantage. Right. You allow people to advance with you too. So right. If you have an opportunity to show people that you can help them, right. And they can help you, then absolutely it's beneficial, it's symbiotic. And mm-hmm. That's something where I think that's one thing I really like about Craig is that he already has the connections one off. He's a classic name dropper because he knows everybody. In a good way. It's not arrogance. He's like, the guy worked at Universal Studios back in the 90s when he was in high school. And he's worked all the way through things, all the way through the whole gamut. And he knows people. I mean, I can name a list, my arm long. But it's not about that. It's just the fact that the connections are there and that somebody wants to take the story. And it's not just about dollars. It's about, okay, what if we could take this just to the next level? It's like with Chuck, the same thing. He wants to take the story in a direction that I want to bring it out just a little bit better than what it was. And you have to delegate that. Thank God I've got the right people in my tribe that I can listen to and I can learn from and that I can trust. You're included in that, Brian.
Thank you.
And
that's
So
Thank
Craig,
you,
Craig's been a godsend anyway, but
Mhm.
it's, and I'm learning, it's not all grins and giggles, I'm sure, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's
it's
gonna be a hell
hard
of a
work
journey.
too.
It's gonna be a hell of a journey. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And if I can help somebody else get the leg up, I'm going to. Absolutely.
Sure.
Say
Yeah,
if I can do it, come on. Let's be real.
That's what that's what I said about my own publishing, where I am, such as it is, anyone can do it if they do the right things. And, and you made a good point about, networking and such. And Craig, when you're in Indiana and you need a place to stay, remember, no, bad Brian.
He'll take you up on that. He'll take you up on that.
You might. Now, I want to read some from Rick Bradley. He's got some good comments here. And what if someone who is just horrible and evil comes back and now have a new lease on life to cause mayhem? They escape and madness ensues. See now, I think that's the idea of the notion of a solid idea that, like, I'm a big champion of public domain stuff because it inspires a lot of what we know in our current pop culture literature. And see, you've already got somebody, I blurted out a story idea. Rick's got one. See, it's lighting a fire.
Right.
See?
And Rick, Rick, I think that you're probably, we're very kindred spirits, my friend. I think that there's a lot of things in the storyline that, now here's a curveball for you. So as the story goes, if in your viewpoint, if that person ends up escaping, what happens if there's a community of people that want them to escape and want them to start a whole lot of fires? So keep that in mind, because retrieve is, I think that you're going to enjoy the journey, bro. Yeah, definitely. You're going to enjoy the journey.
I'm thinking so too. He said, and Rick Bradley goes on, imagine Vlad Tepes now.
Sure.
And I'm thinking, like, somebody, even like a Hitler, would have his followers that would want that person, brought back to life. And Rick Bradley follows that up with, "You've talked me into it. I want all those books." Well, if you want all those books, be sure you go to Ted Davies Artistry, and he will have information on how you can make these your very own, and I think you should. And Carl Witzman goes on to say, most people don't want to do the work to get to that point, to get success. That's I would agree with that completely. How about you, Ted?
I agree with that. I think that success is different for different people, though. So I don't think monetary is one thing. Monetary is a byproduct, as far as I'm concerned. We have to live. I get that, but success is a very fine line. You can be successful. Just I remember there was a story. There was a movie called All About Bill. I think it was with Bill Murray.
Yeah,
and he made these short-term goals. I'm going to walk out of the elevator. I'm going to get out of the elevator. That's the way I live my life. I mean, it sounds crazy, but that's how you have to. If you're an author, if you're an artist, if you're a YouTuber, that's how you do it. You make, at least for me. So yeah, your success has got to be. It's got to be what you think success is. Forget the norms. Forget the norms. Don't listen to anybody when it comes to that. Don't listen to anybody comes to that. But
exactly,
you'll know in your gut. You'll know in your gut what's successful and what's not successful. You'll know.
Yeah, and you might learn something about what a new level of success is, and go into some find yourself someplace where you go, okay, this is where I meant to be. It was meant to be. I don't know how I got here. I kind of know how I got here, but I didn't realize this was where I needed to be. So it's, like you said, it's a different journey for different people, and we all have a different destination sometimes. And Rick Bradley goes, "Yes, you are a mind reader," and if you're inside my brain right now, Rick Bradley, seek professional help immediately. Just drop what you're doing, run out the door, and dial 911. So anyway, I think that's fabulous, and I'm seeing nothing but potential from this. I'm seeing nothing but potential for where your career is going, and you're just really kind of getting started, aren't you? You know?
Yeah. This is well, I mean, technically, since August, so. Last year. So it's been fantastic. Like I said, I've been building, I've been trying to, I overthink. I'm a classic overthinker, analyze everything to exhaustion. And it's, poor Christine, but, a couple bottles of wine here and there help for her. But there's, I
got one like her at home. I understand.
Yeah, you and Cookies. I look forward to meeting you and Cookie in person. But I
Ditto.
don't think that there's thank you. I don't think that there's a method to the madness. But I firmly believe, and I've said this on my YouTube channel, there are no self-made men or women. Everybody is connected, and that's part of my Taoist beliefs too. My Buddhist, whatever. Everybody is connected. Whether it's the guy that manufactured that fez or that woman, or made your bow tie, or made the buttons on my shirt, we're all connected. And that's something that if you think for a minute that you are self-made, you've made the first mistake. You've got to understand, and if COVID has not shown you anything, that we're all connected one way or the other. We're all connected. It started in China. It started wherever. Guess what?
Yeah.
People all over the world have it now, so we're connected.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly right. This just makes me happier than heck. Now I've got a handful of questions to close this out. And again, if anyone in our audience has any questions before we sign off tonight, please type them out and hit enter, and we will read them, unless they're really embarrassing. But anyway, who are, you mentioned Chuck Pinot, and, of course, you and I are friends, but you want to name drop some other allies in your creative journey in the indie field? Well,
first off, Randy Zimmerman. I can't say enough about Randy. Randy is great. The thing about Randy, it's a funny story. I'll make it quick. My father-in-law, Randy, is a newspaper guru here in Flint, or was in Flint, and here in Flint, in Michigan. Yeah. He sold, I don't even know how to explain it. He put out a paper of Flint comics for 10 years, free. And my father-in-law delivered for him, ironically.
Oh, wow.
And so he knew my father-in-law's like, you've got to meet this guy. You've got to meet this guy. And, he's my father-in-law. So like, whatever,
Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever. What do you know about comic? What do he worked at GM for 30 years. Here, Ted being arrogant. Right. Goes to show you we're all connected. So I'm living it. I'm learning it and living it too, every day. So I ended up getting published with that, and I ended up meeting Randy just by happenstance because he was connected with the publisher I was with. True. And he and I, he's just terrific. Very guiding, very strict, but very knowledgeable. So that's the first one. Luke Stone. Can't say enough about Luke. Luke, one of the things, we met through you. And the thing about Luke is he's got his viewpoints, but he does not force feed you. Yeah. He doesn't force feed you. Yeah. When he's the thing I really respect about him is that he is authentic. He has integrity. He tells you what he's going to do and he does it. Yeah. He pays well and he pays on time. Fantastic guy. And he's a great creator. I can bounce ideas off of him. I can ask him technical questions, and he'll tell me if he has questions. Of course, he asks me things. That's interactive, and I can't say enough about Luke Stone. Let's see, Scott Rosema. I don't know if you know. Scott Rosema.
You know Scott. Okay, Scott and I are old buddies. Well. Yeah, cool.
Scott and I really like Scott a lot. He and his wife are terrific. Scott's he's one of the things about Scott is Space Ghost. I was a huge fan of Space Ghost, and he does Space Ghost so well. So he and I have been friends for a long time when it comes to that. Oh man, I could go on and on. Let's see. Give me a second. Obviously the newbie Meredith. I'll tell you what, she's fantastic. I can't say enough about Meredith. I have only known her for like a couple weeks, but man, I'm total fan. Oh, yeah. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to be the first person that buys her signed comic book when she's done with her first comic. I look forward to helping her any way I can on that. Robbie Anderson, he's always shared everything about my journey, where I'm going to be when Retrieve's coming out. Chuck's been there. I mean, Travis has been there. Travis Gibb. He's they've been there as far as listening to me, ask them to be on a podcast or where should I go for podcasts. And this is back to, out in August or, through last year. The list can go on and on. I'm sure I left out a bunch of names, but as far as that goes, the first ones that come to mind, indie wise, that's the dirty of it, so to speak, right now.
I get it.
But there's a ton of people, but yeah, those are the first people that I would probably recommend on the list.
Very cool. Very cool. Now that you've been your own boss as an independent creator, and you're reaping some benefits right now that a lot of people dream about, in the indie field and those who want to be in the indie field. Do you have any desire to take your artwork to, say, a larger company, where somebody would have editorial oversight of you and would start telling you more what they need from you as a creator? Would you want to go work for one of the larger companies?
I think that's fine if that's the way anybody wants to do that. You're witnessing right now, and I'll be is arrogant enough to say this only because I'm a soldier in this. I am not the general.
Do it.
We're in a revolution right now. We are changing the perspective of the world right now on indie comics. It is not going to be, you self-publish yourself. It's not going to be like that anymore. Yeah. Mark my words. You're going to see in the next 5 years different distribution, different everything. It's going to change. Whether it's Kickstarter, Indiegogo, distributing, whatever, we're changing it. So you know what? No, I own my own IPs. Christine and I own them. My kids are going to own them when I'm gone. And that's going to be my legacy. So if I can bring people with me on the journey, not to use them, but for their benefit too, right? Whether they're learning and whether they're making money with it, then you know what? Forget the big companies. I don't want that. I'd rather produce 1,000 books on my own, get them out to the people that want them, and then let's start producing some stuff. I don't want any of the big stuff. I think that scripting and then getting options is a good thing. I think that's one avenue, because it will bring inspiration to other people, and of course it's going to sell. So I don't mean that, but you know what I mean. There's it's so many different...
There's a little mercenary in everything we do. Sure, we got to pay for all this stuff, right?
And we've got to be, one of the things I respect a lot about Mike Mignola and his wife, her name's Chris as well, Christine. I don't know them personally, but the way that they've structured their business, their IP, I don't know if she's still doing it, but for a long time, she got all the prints made. She got all the mugs with the Hellboy stuff on it, and they were shipping them out of their garage. I mean, that is epic. And you know what? There's more return on their investment. The money's coming back into their pocket, and they have control of it. And that's, that is it's a learning for everybody right now. But mark my words, the revolution has begun, and the indie revolution is happening, and we are on the forefront of it. And I want to take as many indie creators on the journey with me on my YouTube channel, get them excited about it. I can't say enough about that, and get them to the point where they're excited about their own work. Very
cool. Very cool. We got some comments. Carl Winston says, I am glad to hear that Ted is keeping control. And look at how YouTube changed the broadcasting industry and taking it independently in many ways. The arts are changing out of corporate hands. And I think that's exactly what you were saying. And, as an indie book publisher, I publish mostly novels. I do comics and stuff. But when I got in the field, even in 2012, there were a lot of people who say, oh, you obviously aren't any good because otherwise somebody else would be publishing you. Right. Now we are getting some recognition in our area, and it's almost completely gone in the field of comics. Right. It's no longer, oh, you must suck because Marvel isn't publishing you. They might be looking at your stuff and going, hey, I better get this. This might be the next Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. So
it might be.
Attitudes are changing, and it's guys like you that are doing it. So a couple more questions. One, tell us about your YouTube channel. What are you doing on there, Ted? It's YouTube and everything.
We're doing a few things. I'm changing it up a bit, but I started out, I wanted to have a format that we could bring in different things that I enjoy, but maybe let you in my world a little bit, but see if there's something that might be interesting for you too. So like, I like antiquated books. I like the fact that it took a week to produce a book, and they had melted lead involved, and it was stamped ink, and on and on. I can go. I want to showcase different talents, you included. I want to showcase cigars. I want to showcase good coffee. Speaking of which, I got my first sponsor last week on my YouTube channel.
Oh, cool!
I did, and I haven't even gotten 100 subscribers yet, which was shocking when I got the call.
Nice.
Or got the, which was great, and I was completely humbled. One of the YouTube channels I did, or one of the YouTube videos, was about Indian River Roasters, and they got, but they were doing, they had, because of COVID and everything else, they had to shut down their brick and mortar shop, but they continued to roast. They made it work. They said, hey, we love what you're doing. Again, everybody's helping everybody out here, and they want to sponsor my YouTube channel. So having said that, the Indian River Roasting is going to be every time I'm drinking a cup of coffee, it's Indian River anyway. So I want to make sure that we're, it's showcasing not just from a standpoint of my YouTube channel is mainly to promote myself, but also promote others in the journey. It's also to, I'm going to start interviewing now, different people that I consider not worthy, but people that are inspiring to the point of, I know that they're going to inspire others to make other people feel worthy. That's the next level of and I want to show people how to do things. I did that silly video about how to do decoupage on a cigar box.
That was brilliant. I love that.
Thank you. But if you can make things, if this, you might not do anything with cigar box. You might do it on something else. You might, whatever. But it's an option that I think YouTube gives you that, it gives you some clarity. You can mess around. You can, try to figure out how it's going to work. And if it doesn't, then delete it, or not use it. But it might bring somebody, hey, you know what? This is what I do with my iPhone 8. This is where I ran it through. This is the video editor I used. And this is how I use it's to educate people, but also entertain. I want to bring value to what I do as far as Ted Davies artistry. Show them what I'm doing. Show them the artwork that I create, how I create it. And Carl and I were talking. If it's okay, Carl, I'm gonna go ahead and announce it here. We're gonna start bringing out. There's gonna be a lot of different things that I'm gonna be doing with different creators. Carl's one of them, but he and I both enjoy cigars. But there's people out there that are not gonna, that don't even know how to light one, or they don't want to smoke. They might want to try one. Right. But they want to do it. I want to bring that out to where it's an art form. I don't want you getting cancer. I'm not promoting that type of thing, but just to enjoy it. Have that with maybe try the flavors with chocolate. Have a cigar, try a piece of chocolate with it, and coffee, or have some Jameson with it, and see what that's about. Just enjoy the whole environment, the experience. And that's one thing that Carl, I think, and we're going to bring out once a month. We're going to do a simulcast. That's going to be, I'm not sure what we're going to call it yet. We're still working on that, and the logo's coming out, but that's going to be fun. But it's an evolving thing, and that's what Ted Davies artistry is all about. My artwork's evolved since I was 4 years old. So is my artistry. My writing will eventually too, hopefully for the better. But yeah, YouTube is just another medium that I use, like watercolor. It's same, it's just another avenue. Hopefully to inspire people.
I think you're going to be doing a good job of it. And Carl says, I'm working through Ted's YouTube history now as I have time. And of course, he said he gave you permission. You said go for it, and you did. Which is probably,
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably the theme of the show is go for it. And Rick Bradley says he loves a good cigar. And I think we can close out with this quote here. I'm thinking I picked the right time to get into the indie scene, says Rick Bradley.
Rick.
Yeah, it's, and it's like, like I said, I've been self-publishing for 8 years now, and it's still like you're getting in on the ground floor. It really is, because there's always room for one more.
You paved the way too. It's people like you that have done it. I mean, and there's not many like you. You've been in the trenches for a while, and it's but you're now. I think I'll state it right here. I think you're on the cusp. I think you are on the cusp of something huge. I think you're going to be bigger than you think. I think that things are going to be happening for you in the future that are going to be really spectacular for you. And I think this is just the beginning for all of us. Seriously. So,
well, that's the key word you said there.
Set the time and date.
All right, I appreciate that, Ted. I really do. I sincerely do. And the thing is, you use the right pronoun there, us. None of us are going into this alone. We're not doing this alone, and we're not going to wind up at the finish line alone. It's going to be it's going to be like Spike Jonze used to say. It's either going to be a photo finish or a watercolor finish, one of the two. But and
right.
Carl, well, I'll give Carl the last word. And we both love fedoras, but
yes.
And Tyrone, Tony Reed, great show. Thank you very much, Tyrone, Tony Reed. Sincerely, thank you all very much. And a couple more things. I always got a couple more. One, what are you reading nowadays in comics? What are your pleasures in comics?
Sorry, I am reading. I'm gonna go grab it. Give me 1 second.
Okay, I'll vamp for you. And remember, folks, I can be found on YouTube, and I can be found on Rising Tide Publications page, as well as my own profile page.
Let me get my earbuds back in. Hold on.
All right. I'm still promoting. Take your time. Okay. And Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Nevermind the Furthermore at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, and Rising Tide title pending, of which this is an annex to. So anyway, Ted Davies, we've killed enough time and gotten rid of the dead air. Oh, that looks sweet. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know that one. Brother Henri Compon, David Anthony Kraft.
My man Henri. Yep, my man Henri.
Our man. Oh, yeah, we love that guy.
And he, so I've got the 10 books, and I am reading, and I am ingesting, and I am inspired. And, so I'm reading that, and it's been hard because I've been writing, and I've been trying to get everything else done. Yeah. The website's up. We've been trying to deal with that. I got a tech group that are working with me on that. They've been so patient, and so I'm trying to do it all, and it's it's been fun. It's been, I'm not knocking it, but that's been a great journey. That book's fantastic. I recommend anybody get on the Compton site, get it, buy it. At best, I mean, the best. I think $25 or whatever I've ever spent on this series. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, he's putting out his third set of them right now, I believe. But the first two series are in hardcover right now. And the first one has an introduction by Stan Lee. Yep. And I'll vouch for that. I think it's one of the best series I have ever read. It is very mature. It is nothing you want to leave on the coffee table for the kids to digest. And it's not going to be a Saturday morning cartoon anytime soon. But it is some of the most sophisticated storytelling about a real-life Korean Naval War hero who in 22 battles in 20 years, he never lost a single one. So it's a great story. It's serious, and the art is breathtaking. So good choice.
Yeah, it's very good. Like I said, it's something to where you. I mean, I don't know if it's his opus, but it's going to be hard to follow up. I mean, it's pretty good, I got to say.
Oh, no joke. It could be half that good, I'm telling you.
Right.
And one last question, and Ted's going, thank God. No, one last question. What did we forget to ask you? What is on your mind that you would love people to know about you or about your love of comics, your love of creation? I'll let you have pretty much the last word here.
That's a tough one. It's a good question, but humility is a very funny thing, because humility, the way I look at humility is it can be a real bitch teacher, or it can be it can teach you something to where you know how to treat others because you've been there. And the one thing that I've looked at my life now, let's say the last 10 years, humility is a very important thing to me. If you can see somebody else's perspective, and that's one thing about Retrieve that I think you're going to see. If you can see one person's perspective and maybe empathize with them, be compassionate about where they come from, even if you disagree with them, which I do on a lot of people, especially in today's world.
Yeah.
If you know where they came from, that's really important to me. My mother gave me this gift of empathy, and I hated her for it for years. I really despised that she did it, because in corporate America, you don't survive if you have empathy. Yeah. You don't. Maybe that's why I don't want to go back to any of the big corporations. But I think if you have empathy, if you have integrity, if you have compassion, you will achieve greatness. Even if you don't do it monetarily, you will. I firmly believe you will never be alone when you die.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I really, really want people to know about me when it comes to artwork. Of course, we got to make a few dollars here and there, but when it comes down to it, I'm always thinking about the people that are going to be looking at this and hopefully enjoying it. So, yeah, empathy is a big part of me. So,
all right. That's fantastic. Great, Ted. Well, now the people hopefully are fired up about your work, about these great things you've got ahead of you, and I wish you every bit of success with it, brother. Seriously, I do. I think it's going to be fantastic. Now, all that remains is tell people how to learn more about you. Where can they find more about Ted Davies artistry? Why, look, there's one now.
We're starting to, we launched the website about a week and a half ago. My tech team's still working on it. It's not quite finished. There's a lot of things that we're changing as daily as we go. But as far as the book sales, everything's that's for sale is on the website. You go to Shop Ted. Everything deals with Ted. So you'll be TED Talks, Ted's Tribe. If you're affiliated with me business wise, by all means, send me a link. Send me your link with Messenger or what have you, and I will post you on my Ted's Tribe section of my website. I'm trying to have it so it's a one-stop shop. You can reach my Facebook, my YouTube, everything through this website. So TedDaviesArtistry.com. I really think that's the, if you want to call it a gateway to the Ted Davies experience, Ted Davies Artistry experience, that's going to be it. So Ted Davies Artistry. Of course, you can find me on my social networks, but that's definitely where I would like you to start, TedDaviesArtistry.com.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a lot of fun. For me, at least. I hope it has been for you too, Ted.
It's been a blast. Thank you.
Great.
You are a man among men, and you are a scholar. You know that. So
well, thank you. Well, thank you, and that goes right back at you, brother. Seriously. And we are going to do something like this again and more often. Okay.
Excellent. All right. I look forward to it.
All right, I do too. Well, everyone, please follow the work of Ted Davies as I. Let's see. Carl Witzman says I have 59 subs on my YouTube channel. As Henri would say, onward to victory.
That's right. That's right.
So anyway, we're going to close out the show here on the Con Network. Again, thank you very much, Ted Davies. Appreciate your being here and your time and your expertise. You're fascinating, and thank you. Now we're going to close out the show here. I'm Brian K. Morris. I'm with Rising Tide Publications. We do novels. We do comic books. We write for a whole lot of other people, and we'll be talking more about that in the months to come. In fact, if you go to risingtide.pub, you can sign up for my monthly newsletter, which will be coming out January 1st. I'd also like to thank Rob Anderson for letting me have this time and space. We also do a daily, or not daily, it's going to go to 3 times a week called Nevermind the Furthermore, where you are the guest star. We have a little interactivity, as we've mentioned here before. And also on Tuesday nights, we do a show called Clever Title Pending, which you notice this is called. We do a variety of subjects and interview subjects. Last Tuesday, we did Imposter Syndrome. We talked about it with Meredith Logren, Luke Stone, and Carl Witzman, who you should be familiar with by now. And this coming Tuesday on June 2nd at 8 p.m., 7 p.m. Central Time, we will be talking to author Amy Hale, also self-publisher, widely published. She's got a great story, and you're going to want to hear it. So anyway, this is me and Brian, and we will be seeing you on other Con shows. Don't forget tomorrow night at 4 p.m., 3 p.m. Central Time. Meredith Logren will be on as the comics noob as she goes forward in her journey to create a comic book by the end of 1 year. She's going to have a fantastic panel tomorrow, and you are definitely going to want to see that. So everyone, we thank you for being here. We hope you'll tune in every day to the Con Network and the Comic Book Advocates Network and the Geek Insider Network for all your comic entertainment and informational needs. This is Brian K. Morris signing off, reminding everyone, stay smart, stay safe, wash your damn hands, and never apologize for being awesome. Thank you for being here, and take care, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Clever Title Pending, a Rising Tide Publications and Brian K. Morris production. A member of Comic Book Advocating Network and sponsored by GeekInsider.com. Become part of our show with sponsorship and advertising opportunities. For details, contact advertising at geekinsider.com or visit podcast.geekinsider.com. The Geek Insider podcast is available on your favorite app, so please hit the follow button and share it out to your friends, because if you don't, you might have to turn in your geek card.
And we are off the air, or at least I thought we were. We're still on the air. Goodbye, everyone.